Hi everyone, I'm the Broken Meeple. Win or lose, I'm going to be honest with you, and this is just a quickie beyond the base game video to showcase the new expansion for Sniper Elite. If you want to check out my full review on Sniper Elite, then by all means do. I might have even done one of the expansions in the video, I'm not sure, but I've definitely done the base game. This is my go-to hidden movement game. Out of all of them. I mean, I've played Spectre Ops. I like Spectre Ops. I've played, various other ones like Letters from Whitechapel and Beast and a few others, and some of them have been better than others, but Sniper Elite is my go-to. It's, relatively easy to play. It's got a half-decent solo mode in it, although most of the time I'll play this with other people, and it's just a good amount of fun, and I still have not played a single Sniper Elite PC game, because every time I feel like doing it, I look at the reviews and they always seem to be mixed, like it's an imperfect game or something, but I've still actually got Sniper Elite 4 on my Steam library. It came for free, or like £3 or something, so at some point maybe I ought to do that. But for now, I've got the board game and this is all good. So we're looking at Operation Kraken. This is essentially 2 more maps with some rules tweaks for them, and that's essentially the gist. It's basically a map pack, so I'm going to show you just briefly what each map is like, what the new rules are, and give you my thoughts as to how they play.
Okay. Uh-oh.
So we got the Norman Village for starters, and this is the more basic of the 2 maps, and honestly, you can probably teach the game to people with this one. It's not a complicated map. You've got extra entrances to enter the board with, no big deal, but the main change is that you've got these 2 armoured vehicles, these 2 cool little miniatures. They start on the board on the road, and the idea is that you can basically drive these with your German characters, so you basically get like upgraded actions with them, because normally you've got spot and sweep and move, and you have to sort of do one or the other. Well, this one basically allows you to drive and sweep, drive and spot, attack adjacent if need be, or just drive really fast. And they can get across the board quite quickly, but they are restricted to going on the road. So no sort of like crazy thing of oh, I've spotted him inside that village. If only you could.
I didn't see you playing with your dolls again. Good!
I'm surprised you can't, because I know this is, what, the early 1900s or something, but it's like, I'm pretty sure this armoured car would be able to go on some of the grassland, but I don't know, I suppose you've got to simplify it somehow. But that's basically all this map is. It's just more entrances and the 2 armoured vehicles. So it makes it very easy to teach with new players. Doesn't make it any less fun though. This is a pretty solid map. The objectives feel, well spaced out, and there's a lot of open ground. So there's decent sort of maneuverability for the sniper, but then also on the flip side, there's also quite a few opportunities for the Germans to spot and sweep them. But there are a few crafty little side bits that you can run around. I mean, when I played this last, I remember I came in on this side on the yellow bit, and then there's a kind of like a farmyard patch, or sort of like a it's like farmyard or shrubbery or whatever, but I basically ran around the edge of the whole board around here and got to the objective of the back building, whilst they were faffing around over here trying to figure out where I was. So, there are some crafty little moves you can do here, but there's still a few buildings that you can dart in and out of, but there's not many buildings. This one's definitely a bit more of an open map compared to others, but yeah, there's not much else to really say about it. You get the usual cards for this board where you deal them out for objectives, but there's no real other rule changes. You just basically have these 2 cars, which are very good for the opposition to use to try and spot the sniper. The sniper can potentially destroy a vehicle, but it's not easy. You've pretty much got to be like practically right up next to the thing and get a decent shot in order to be able to take out a vehicle. And chances are, if you do take out a vehicle, it doesn't take too long for the enemy to try and figure out where you are. So sometimes, unless I'm in a pinch, I would probably rather just let the car drive by and just try not to get in its way or something, because if the car is still alive and has any inkling where you are, that's going to be a sniper that ain't going to last very long. But yeah, the Norman Village is a pretty solid one. You can teach it to new players, and it's something a little bit different, but not drastically.
I admire its purity.
You want something a little bit different, and how about the Super Carrier? The Super Carrier is definitely a fun map. It's also best played with veteran players. This is not one I would teach to new players. You're gonna want to be familiar with this game, I think, with at least half the group. Definitely the sniper needs to know what they're doing here, and I would say at least one person on the opposition side needs to know what they're doing in order to get the full benefit from this map. This is basically a 3-level ship. So the idea is that the sectors, black, red, and yellow, are on all 3 levels. When you gain intel, which is usually sweeping an entire color sector on the board, you have to declare whether you're doing a level of the ship or the color of the sector. So if your officer is in yellow, you can scroll across multiple levels, but there's only so much of each level that's covered by yellow, for example. But you could instead, if my officer just happens to be here, say, I'm going to intel this entire level of the ship. And of course, the sniper has to respond accordingly. So how do you get from each level? Well, you've got 2 ways as a sniper. One if you're the opposition. Main way to do it is via ladders. So these ladders have all got letter notation on them to say where they're adjacent to. But the sniper also has air ducts that they can use. Not many of them, but they can potentially slip through one of the air ducts to get from one level to another. And you can do some pretty insane fast travel with this. I mean, you can go from, the Y duct here over to this one, Y duct, but then you can also go from Z duct over here all the way down to this level via the Z duct. So you have got quite a few ways to get around the board. But it's not as simple as that, because the opposition can also lock doors. There are reinforced walls on this thing, which means you can't shoot through them, you can't do various actions through them, but you can still hear noise. But there are also doors on this board that can be locked by the defenders. And you're a sniper, you're not a locksmith, so you don't have the ability to pick these locks, you have to shoot them off. And of course, shooting them off gives the enemy a little bit of indication where you are, because as soon as you shoot the lock off the door, they're like, oh, that door's lock's gone. He's somewhere on the middle, go get him. And, they can congregate around. And because each level has only got so many squares in it, it's quite difficult to get past the opposition without alerting them to your presence unless you make good use of these ladders and these air ducts. So it can be, despite the fact that it's over 3 levels, it can be relatively claustrophobic for the sniper in here. But this does give a very cool, unique perspective of the game. It's just, if you are not familiar with Sniper Elite, like playing some of the other maps, this probably isn't the one that I would start people on. The objectives are going to be, a little harder to grab. There's, obviously you've got intel with 3 different levels. You're trying to really think about your positioning here, both as the sniper and the defender. That I think it's probably a step too high for new players to the game. But if you got people familiar with it, it's still a pretty fun map. I mean, Flashpoint Fire Rescue did the same thing eventually when they decided, right, we're not going to just have one level, we're going to have multiple levels. And it worked well in Flashpoint. It works well here on as well. So, I mean, you've already got 3 levels for this. I'm sure they could do a skyscraper or a big building or something and do a 2-level thing. That'd be quite cool. You certainly don't need more than 3. I mean, 3 is already quite extreme. But this one is just, again, another solid map. So we've got a village, 1 level with vehicles, and you've got a 3-level supercarrier for the other. But it's not that the rules for the supercarrier are complicated. There's just a few more. I mean, the rule book for these maps, you've got literally, I think, just a couple of pages for the Norman Village, which is not that much. Yes, you've only got a couple of pages of the supercarrier as well, but there's quite a few little nuances to it about, how noise works, how adjacency works, how the intel works, how the doors work. So there's just maybe one or 2 extra rules that you've got to sort of contend with on top of everything else that I just say that it's not the best one to start with. And that's basically Operation Kraken in a nutshell. You do get a few extra cards, like a couple of extra toolkit things for the sniper to use in that, but it's predominantly these 2 maps. What do I think? I think this is excellent. I think these 2 maps are ones that I'm going to be wanting to play quite often. How often I'll get the supercarrier to the table depends. I mean, you can play it solo, and there are some special tweaks for that, but these 2 maps are just really good. I mean, the previous one wasn't bad either. But, I mean, Sniper Elite doesn't really have, any maps that I would say are terrible. I mean, you could almost say the base game maps. Once you've played some of these expansion maps, you won't play the base game ones anymore. Well, the base game ones are still pretty solid. There isn't a single map where I have gone, this is terrible, I don't like this map. So, declaring my favourites is actually going to be quite tricky with this one. But these are just 2 other really cool maps. Both of them work really well, just a slightly different audience for each. One for the familiar players and one for the new players, because the vehicles are not difficult to teach. They pretty much utilize similar rules to the normal side. You just get to do better versions of them effectively. So both of these are really solid. It's another solid expansion. I mean, what to call it really? It's another it's another 9 out of 10, I guess. I mean, you know, these map expansions are basically what you want. You want 2 new maps, you want more variety in the game, and you want the maps to be fun to play on. Well, these ones are fun to play on. I do really like these 2, so you know, I hope I'll get to play more of them soon. So that's it from me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb up on YouTube and thumb up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the expansion page. Check out my original review for Sniper Elite if you want to hear the reasons and pros and cons of why I like the game and why it's my go-to hidden movement game. And I can't remember if I did the video for the other expansion, but by all means have a look on my site and see if you can find it. If not, I'll have a look and maybe put it up as a link. But yeah, that's all from me. So take care. Remember, it's only a game, and I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple video. So take care, everyone.